This is Otaku No Video, episode 31. F, A Tale of Memories, episodes 4 through 6. So this time we're going to talk about episodes 4 through 6 of F, A Tale of Memories, as things start to get a little bit more interesting. I will admit I'm a little bit more intrigued about the characters at this point, and I think it's on an upward swing story-wise, or at least that I think the character relationships are getting significantly more complex. What were your sort of overall thoughts?
Well, I thought that I didn't think that it was more complex, but rather just explained.
Good, well put. Yes, I agree with that. I think we're starting to get into sort of the meat of the show at this point.
Yeah, why were they doing? Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, they're still introducing a pretty large cast. I mean, we've got Renji's mom introduced now, who is apparently dead. I don't know, and just other stuff going on. I was thinking back to Haruhi and how carefully they introduce characters in that show, and I feel like they're just sort of dropping the ball on this one in terms of just having a very large cast that all tend to look kind of the same.
Yeah, and they also sound very much the same. I mean,
they do.
In Haruhi, there was a different... Well, you know what? Let's just not go into comparison of, Haruhi versus F. There are obvious dissimilarities in a lot of different areas for that. Yeah. But I think the visual department is where things really broke down. In terms of telling the difference between characters, because, that's the reason I can tell Itsuki from Kyon.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hairstyles, features are different. Okay, well, apply that somebody else, please.
Which is weird, because you look at the different characters here, and you have different colored hairs, slightly different hairstyles, granted, and various other things, but it's like they just... They're not enough detailed differences, and like I'm getting to the point now where I pretty much know who everyone is and can recognize everyone, but still it's just not working very well. Plus, you have the problem that they keep changing artistic styles on us so much that all of a sudden I'll see someone in grayscale and I have no idea who it is.
Yeah, that happens occasionally. Although, considering the grayscale, it doesn't really matter who it is.
True.
And to be frank, yeah. Now that we know what it means as of, let's see, what was it? I mean, it should have been more obvious in episode 3, was it, where the angel god character thing meets, is that Hirono?
Yeah, I think so.
On the roof and talks about colors, and we get him in a whole bunch of different colors and blah, 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 blah. Should have picked up on that earlier. I blame myself.
I didn't pick up on it either.
Yeah, but it's pretty spelled out. And that, maybe it's just me being an idiot or both of us being idiots or something like that. But for another sequence later in this set of episodes, I think it was 6.
Okay.
I didn't feel like the relationship between Chihiro herself and everything else needed to be further enunciated the way it was.
Agreed there. I think they really made that clear. I really love the visual metaphor of the stained glass and the empty distance around her. I thought that was a very effective way of putting it across, but I think, we got it. We understand where that's going. I just don't know why they keep hammering that home.
Maybe because there's nothing else.
Could very well be. I am getting a little more used to the visual style in terms of how they're holding on to shots and so forth. I think that has certainly gotten a little bit better. I think they've now gotten a handle on their kind of editing scheme, and that's become just a lot more reasonable, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think the animation's gotten better all around. So
I was surprised. The animation has certainly improved, although I think they did things like the basketball sequence so that they could reuse it in every single episode. But hey, it looks lovely.
Yeah, at least it's people talking and not just the camera off in the distance, too lazy to move.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've figured things out a little bit better. Although I'm still weirded out by this sudden thing where we'll be going along normally, and then we'll get like 5 shots all in succession, each of them like 3 frames long, showing just a bunch of different stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know what that's trying to communicate in those sequences, mainly because they happen at the very end, and we've had other sequences of characters feeling overwhelmed or feeling whatever, and it just didn't, and it wasn't communicated in that way. So I don't know quite where that's going.
Yeah, well, not as bad this time around for this set of episodes in terms of random stylistic devices that didn't necessarily make sense or had been explained before.
Agreed.
But it's still there.
Yeah, yeah. And they've still got the weird cliches. I mean, stuff like when Miyako was feeding, what's his name, the lunch, I was literally typing into my text document, and Kay walks in. And Kay walks in. Yeah, it was going to happen, and Kay walked in. And there's still a little bit too much of that, of very much common sort of anime misunderstandings, which I'm still tired of.
Yeah, things like that happen. But I really think that starting with episode 4, things were a lot more bearable, other than the ridiculous fall from Chihiro in which Renji...
Yeah, all of a sudden a nearby wave knocked her over. What?
It just looked ridiculous. It was so over dramatic and
that actually the over dramaticness is something that has really gotten me kind of, I don't want to say intrigued. I'm kind of shocked. Like, all of a sudden, characters like Miyako are suddenly like really rude, and Chihiro is really rude, and characters are doing things that are incredibly forward or incredibly just dismissive of other people that, from what little I know of Japanese culture, you just don't do to people. At the very least, you just don't say anything. But they're insulting each other, and they're doing all these sorts of things that are just feel very false to me.
I can, to a certain extent, there are some weird instances where people just come out of nowhere with things, but I don't. It didn't feel completely over the top to me.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. It wasn't completely over the top. It just felt a little. It felt like these characters had to argue with each other, and so all of a sudden they would just be very insulting in that way. It's just it felt somewhat false, not horribly. I will give them props for revealing the manner of Chihiro's accident. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I was just rather amazed that they were willing to go that far. And now that I have a better feeling on the exact nature of Chihiro's memory problems, I will give them props for the fact that Chihiro does act very much like a sort of a 12-year-old girl who's been slightly matured by her body and so forth and so on. But she does have that sort of kid quality to her that I think comes out nicely.